Today we're going to look at research method. I believe that's where we are. I'm not 100% sure. I think that's where we are, research method. Because last week we would have looked at sources of information. And so, is this recording?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. And so for today's class, what we're going to do is that we're going to look at the different methods that we are going to use to collect our data, all right? So that's what we're going to do for today's common hour. Just a quick review. When we talk about research, we know for sure by now, all of us should know that research is the step-by-step process of gathering information, right? And there are several different reasons why we actually do research, either to generate new knowledge, to solve a problem, to test a theory, to be able to predict an event or outcome. In most cases, it's really not to generate, well, it's what you're doing for your IA is to generate knowledge on your particular area that you're going to study, right? Your group. Now, for the last few weeks, we would have been looking at the different, well, one of the first things that we would have looked at was the different types of research, or research is divided. So we look at historical research, descriptive research, experimental research, historical, descriptive, and experimental. Now, under descriptive research, in which that is the area that you will be focusing on, because you're not doing a historical research and you're not doing experimental research. There are two studies that we need to look at, qualitative and quantitative. Now, ladies, most of you are, I believe, are familiar with the concept of qualitative and quantitative. Now, when you meet in your groups, right, you should have a research design. What do I mean by research design? How are you going to carry out your research? So by now, everybody should have, maybe, even if you don't have a notebook, each group should have because you're working through the internet, I would suggest that you create, what do you call it now? A Google Doc. And then on that Google Doc, you're going to put something like the heading research design. And then you're going to put, these are where we're going to get our information. First, you need a topic. You have your topic, your theme, the books that you would have found already. Yes, you should have your books already. And are the different literatures that you plan to use. Notes from those literature, because you'd have already, I believe you should have already gone through those literatures, literature. And also you should be able, well, at this stage, you should decide, how am I going to carry out my research? What are the instruments I'm going to use to carry out the research that I am going to do, right? So for your research design, ladies, your research design is a detailed outline of how an investigation will take place. So in your research design, you should be, this should be a part of it, how the data is to be collected. So what instruments will be employed, how the instruments will be used, and the intended means for analyzing data collected. So when we talk about our research design, what you should have now as a group is, what are the questions that we're going to use? Is it that we're going to use surveys? Is that we're going to use questionnaires? If we're going to use interviews, what are the ways that you're going to collect your data? And how you're going to collect the data, because the how, especially during this time, is very, very important. And I would suggest that one of the best ways of carrying out your research is to use Google Forms, right? So you have a particular year group. I should be seeing those emails going out with asking students from a particular year group or students from a particular class, or maybe students or teachers from somewhere else that is one sec, about the questions that you intend to ask. Even if you're doing an interview, I did an interview recently with someone for a project that I'm working on, and it was easy to organize the interview because we would have done the interview via Zoom. And with technology now, gone are the days. I remember when I had to do interviews with people. Gone are the days they used to go to the different office, the different people office. And when you go to the office, you sit down there from 8 o'clock until 10 o'clock. And when 10 o'clock reach this, they are in a meeting, you are still waiting there to interview them, right? With technology, you can set up some meeting time. You can that is very convenient for the person who you are interviewing. And it could be that it's after work, because it could be maybe around 6 o'clock. The person could be home by 6, and they said, all right, I'll be able to do an interview with you at 6 to 6:30. Always remember to respect your interviewees, the time. All right. Those who you're interviewing, always respect their time. All right. Don't let it be lengthy, and you don't go into people's business. You focus on the questions, right? That is what you're there for if you are using interviews. Questionnaires, and I suggest, I think most of the groups that I would have approved from my group, the topics are looking at surveying students within the school, because it is easier to access students within the school now than to go outside and to do some form of, we call it now, survey and questionnaire and all of these different stuff. So that entails the research design. Now, the first thing that we're going to look at is quantitative research, right? And so quantitative research, your goal is in conducting quantitative research is to determine the relationship between one thing and another within a population. You're not? All right, Shirley. All right, so with your quantitative research, it really has to do, our quantitative research deals mainly with numbers, logics, right? It is trying to find out information in more of a numerical sense. And some of the key features of the quantitative research is that it is usually based upon numerical measurement, and thus it tends to use numbers and statistical methods as key research indicators and tools. And so what you're doing is that when you go into the field, or when you're actually putting your data together from what you would have collected, you're going to put those things into numbers, because it is those numbers that is going to translate into the diagrams that you're going to use. So for example, if you have 4 out of 5 students that say that online learning is horrible, then you will have to translate that 4 out of 5 students, right? That one of the students would have said, yes, online learning is going well. 4 students is saying that, no, this is terrible. I can't deal with this online learning. You do the same thing for a teacher. 3 of the teachers would say, all right, online learning, based on the questionnaires that you'd have sent out. 3 of the teachers would have say that, all right, online learning is going good. Another 2 teachers would say, listen, this is terrible. So you will have to translate those numbers, right? And present those numbers in graph. And that will be looked at, I believe, either next week or the week after. Now, ladies, there are some advantages of using the quantitative data. Is that the study is easy replicatable, meaning that it is easy to copy, right? Or it saves you time, which is, it is cost effective, because one of the reasons why it is cost effective, because you can use quite a lot of means now, especially when it comes to internet, to gather your data. The data that you're collecting is very standard, and it can also be used when it comes to a very wide area. And usually when you do things like this, if the persons don't just go through a questionnaire just like that, then the data is objective to some extent. That's why when you hear on the news, they're talking about polls, they would say that there's some level of margin of errors, because sometimes you're doing questionnaires and some people will not complete all the questions in your questionnaires, which put you at a disadvantage, right? Now, well, which brings me to the next point, is that no indication about the respondent's personal data. When you doing like your questionnaires and all of these different stuff, sometimes it lacks the data. So you personal data of individual, which is a positive, and it can also be a negative, because the negative of that is, the positive is that if it is something that is personal, like very personal, say for instance, you're doing a research on HIV and AIDS, right? Or you are doing something on prostitution, well, that is not your area, but these are abortion, these are very sensitive topics, right? Then for topics like those, ladies, you're not expecting the respondents to have their personal information. However, sometimes it is always good so you can verify the information. And when we use quantitative method, that is not something that is helpful. And also unrepresentative samples can lead to inaccurate and invalid data. And another one is that generalization may not apply to all people in all circumstances. So you can collect all the information that you have, and then you collect all that information, and you will tend to want to generalize the information. All right. I know a number of students cannot join. I know for sure that a lot of students cannot join, but my stuff can only take 100. So they we'll have to solve this next week, because I believe the school, if the school has the Zoom that most of you meet on, they must can set up something for us. I'll speak to my head of department about this issue. All right, sweets. Thank you very much. Next is qualitative research. So we look at quantitative research. Now, qualitative research takes an inducive approach, and its method were developed in the social sciences. Now, when we're really looking at the qualitative research, this is really things that you're going to glean from the literature, from books. And as this point states, is that there is no universal acceptable definition of qualitative research, although it is acceptable that data collected during qualitative research activities is usually not numerical, right? So for qualitative research, you're saying these things that are not numerical. So if you're going to use maybe, and most of you will fall within this category also. So you're going to use both qualitative and quantitative, because some of the topics that you're looking at, some of it are things that have to deal with, for example, one of the major research areas that most of you would have selected, I would look at maybe the internet usage, how people use social media. And so what are the different views out there on social media, that so you're going to collect that information. As we would have stated before, that the qualitative research, it is usually not numerical. However, it is very descriptive, and qualitative research can come in the form of what they call action research, case studies, grounded theory, anything to do with theories. For example, if somebody is applying Marxism to the society, or and you're using a theory that falls on, and you're using the theory as a basis for your research, then that would be the qualitative part of your research. Historical method, anything to do with history, if you go out there and you observe the society, once it has nothing to do with the numbers, then it falls in qualitative, right? Now, the advantages of qualitative research is that, one, issues and subject covered can be evaluated in depth and in detail. Another one is that interviews are not limited to particular question and can be redirected or guided by the researchers real time. So in other words, if you're going to do an interview, you can get, there are some times when you're doing an interview and person you are interviewing actually mentioned something that was not originally part of your script of questions, then you'll be able to glean information from that. But at the same time, you'll be able to ask follow-up questions, right? The direction and the next one, the direction and the framework of the research can be revised quickly as soon as fresh information and finding emerge. So the more you go out there and the more you read, the more you get the information, you can always revise your research, because there are sometimes when, especially when with a research topic, uh, there's a particular topic that the students would have used about body image, right? And it's on the listing of topics about body image. How social media would have influenced either the body image of students or students' view of body image, something to that effect. And I said to the student from upfront that, listen, this is going to be a very difficult topic. Why? Because based on the students' experience last year, they could not find any information, and it was very difficult for them to find information on that particular topic, especially the literature. You can go out there and you can do the interviews. Yes, you get the information, but for the literature, it is very, very difficult to get the literature. Uh, Books on body image, articles on it, very, very difficult, especially those topic, well, that topic and its applicability to the Caribbean, it's very difficult. And so from right then, these students, once I advise them that, listen, you're not able to do that topic, they quickly revise their topic and they would have sent in new topic, right? Or if you're doing the research and you realize that the research is taking, based on what you have read, the research is taking you into a particular direction, then you could change your argument, what you're arguing in the research. Now, another advantage of using qualitative is that the data in qualitative research depends on human experience, and this is more compelling and powerful than data collected through quantitative research. And I'm going to give you another example, and I prefer qualitative research. This is my preference, or maybe because I'm a historian, right? I tend to prefer the qualitative. If you are doing a research on the impact of tropical storm Ita on residents in Garden Town, right? You're going to the field, the qualitative part of the research, you're going to the field and you have your questions and you ask the persons in Garden Town, ask how did they, so you could ask, did the tropical storm impact you in a negative or positive way? 90% of them would say in a positive way, right? Say for instance, 90% of the persons you interview corresponding say it impacted them in a negative way. How many, you know, would you, another question you could ask is, did you suffer any damage to your house? Yes. 80% said would have suffered some form of damage. However, one of the benefits of using the qualitative research is that when you do an interview directly with someone, you could get some more information, which is the human experience, what they would have gone through. So they would tell you that, listen, it is more than just the damage. When we say the landslide, all right, it would have caused some form of trauma. So that is one. They would tell you that even though I suffered damage, you know that I had the furniture that uh, all the furniture in my house, those furniture were gifted to me from maybe my great great grandfather. And so there's value to those things. I'm attached to them. And you'll get more information from a personal viewpoint. You get the human element of it than reducing the people to just numbers. Another example when it comes to qualitative research that government actually use, and this is one of the difference between the persons who actually study subjects like history, sociology, which other subject? History, sociology, politics, those areas, right? With the econ, persons who actually study econ. Econ tend to look at people just solely as numbers. So if you are studying economy and you go into the field, you ask somebody if they're suffering from, well, poverty, and you're doing some research on poverty. Persons would say, all right, yes, to the question, we live on less than $1 there. We live on less than 100 Jamaican dollar there. So that would be about, right now, they would say about 23% of the country living on less than $1 a day, right? However, that doesn't capture um, the reality of poverty in the country, because you can have people who is, you could have people in the society who are working class people who are not surviving, and they are living basically in poverty, if you understand what I'm saying. So even though their earning could be maybe about $50,000 a month, um, or maybe 100,000 a month, they are still living uh, below the poverty line, because maybe they have a lot of debt, or maybe that the cost of living is so expensive, so you are able to purchase food, but the food cannot last. And so for the qualitative research, when you do these interviews, uh, it helps you to get a better understanding of the human experience, right? Now, another one that I will look at in terms of an advantage is that data is usually gathered from few individuals or cases. Therefore, findings and outcome cannot be spread to larger population. However, findings can be transferred to another setting. So that is one of the things. If you are, most of you will do interviews, you'll tend to use very small groups. So your group or your focus that you're using will be, you can, I wouldn't use the word manipulate, but you can manipulate or control. Control is the correct word. Control your group for the qualitative research. Let us see. Some of the disadvantages of qualitative research is that, one, the quality of the research is heavily dependent on the skills of the researcher and can be easily influenced by your personal idiosyncrasies and biases of the researcher, right? So if that is one of the things when you're doing your interviews, as one of the qualitative ways in which you do your, one of the ways in which information is collected qualitatively, in the interview, you can insert your own bias into the into the into the instrument, right, or the question, and say biases can also come out. Also, the rigidity is more difficult to assess and demonstrate and maintain. Another is that disadvantage is that the quality of the data makes interpretation and analysis time very consuming. Because when you do those interviews, usually you will have to transcribe the interview. So you tape the person and you have to transcribe it. And that can be very, 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 very time consuming, right? And then the other thing with the qualitative research is that you don't get a wider, a larger focus group that you want to really look at, because it's just a few persons. For example, if you're looking at maybe some folk culture in Jamaica, you can't use quantitative for folk culture, because you want to go and to interview those older Jamaicans to hear what are their views on some of the different traditional ways in which the people prepare food and all of these different. All right. Now, when we talk about research method, ladies, we refer to the strategies that will be used to collect the data to resolve the research problem. These include, as I said, the quantitative method and the qualitative method. So if people ask you, what was your research method? You could say that, listen, I use a blended approach. Blended means that you use both qualitative and quantitative. Always, and this is a very popular question that comes up in the exam about your research. What is the research method? So always remember that your research method is the strategies that the person actually use to collect their data. And there are two main ways, quantitative and also qualitative. Some forms of quantitative research would include observational studies, survey research, correlation research. So those are examples. I believe another time we'll get to go through these. Also in quantitative method, the focus of observation studies on a particular factor of behavior, and it is quantified. It is recognized more as non-participant observation. Now, non-participant observation involves observing the participants without actively participating. This option is used to understand a phenomena by entering a community involved while staying separate from the activities being observed. When you're actually, I'm not going to go through observational studies. You can read observational studies on your own. Also this. Because most of you wouldn't use observational studies, but one of the main quantitative way in which you're going to do your stuff is through a survey, and survey defines research as a study on a large or small population by selecting samples. Now, I believe either next week you're going to use that, you're going to do the common hour will focus on sampling. So survey involves study on the population and selecting a sample from the population to gather your information, right? The ultimate goal of the survey research is to learn about the large population by surveying a sample of the population. Thus, we also call it descriptive survey or normative survey. Another one is qualitative research, which involves participants' observation. So you go and you observe, you have in-depth interview, or you can also have focus group. I think most of us know already about the interviews. So let's look at the other research method. Another research is also divided, especially for the qualitative, into primary source and secondary source. Now, primary source, and this is something that I doubt you will use, but say you use it. So primary source, it would involve things like maybe minutes from the meetings. If you're going to get minutes from the meeting, based on the topics, you're not going to use any minutes from any meeting. Speeches, interviews, surveys, all of these are the primary source. While the secondary source, these are things that actually comes from either the book, journal articles, all of these different stuff involve the secondary source. Now, this is where I really want to focus the rest of the time on. Is the different steps what you're going to do for your research. So the research process, right? One, most of you most of your group should already identify the problem. Two, you are not where you formulate research question. You didn't formulate the question. The question was actually given to you and you just select it. So you would have already gone through 1 and 2. 3, another part of the research is the literature review. So as I said last class, the literature review or the last common hour, the literature review really involves the 4 to 6 literatures that you need. Always remember that you can't use all of the same. You can't use only books, only journal articles, only internet sources. So literature review is very, very important. Another is your data collection. So what I've just discussed with you is methods of how you would have gone to collect your data, right? So is it that you would have used qualitative method or quantitative method? Please do not define qualitative and quantitative method for when you're talking about the data collection, right? It is going to take up space for your research. So what we need to know is that did you use qualitative method? So qualitative method, and how did you go about collecting that data? If you did your interviews, state the date and the time when you would have gone to collect those, conduct those interviews, how you go about conducting those interviews. Was it through the internet or did you use Zoom to do it? You need to mention all of these different stuff. Quantitative method, you use questionnaires. How did you go about sending out your questionnaires? when you sent out your questionnaires, when you would have put your data together. So this is very, very important here. And after that, now, after you collect your data, and always also note, ladies, that all of these are sections of the IA. So there are actually 8 sections of the IA. The next one is presenting your data. And we will look at that at another time. Data analysis, the analysis of your data. So you're going to interpret what was found, what you would have collected. You're going to analyze it, you're going to state it. Discussion of findings. Now, for the discussion of findings, which is 7, is 7 and 3 directly related, because you're going to discuss your findings based on what was already done in the literature. You're using your literature to discuss your findings. And then the last one is limitation, well, conclusion, your limitations, and your recommendations, right? So these are some of the things that you need to know. Any question, ladies?
No, sir.
Hope I was clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're pretty straightforward.
All right. So I know people don't really talk in the class, and I just cannot be bothered some days to, like to ask questions, because you're really not, some students, some classes you're going to, the students are not responding. So I just go ahead, you can go and listen to the recording, and you have the PowerPoint. It is always remember that this section that we're doing is module 3, and there are going to be 15 multiple choice questions on this question, well, on module 3, right? So it is very important to know some of the key concepts, things like research problem, things that would have already looked at, research method. When you look at sampling, what examples of sampling? How do you go about some ethics when it comes to research, especially some ethical things when it comes to research? Because most people, just want to close on this point, most of us tend to, when we have, we call it now, when we get some information, we tend to go and share that information. And when you're working in, most of you who want to be maybe teachers, if you want to be a medical doctor, if you want to work in the health sector, if you also doing things like psychology, counseling, all of these, they are very confidential fields. And so if you're going to do research on topics, you really can't share your those information that you would have collected, not even to your spouse at your home. They can't share that information. So yeah, if you are doing some very sensitive, well, any topic at all you are doing, you really can't share that information. You shouldn't, especially things when you are dealing with the health sector. That's why nurses and those people in our society, medical doctors and those people, you can go to prison if you release people information. So if you find out that somebody is maybe sick with something, you can't, or somebody would have done maybe an abortion or something, you can't go and say, that this person did that and all of that. It's very important that you remain the confidential element of the risk. All right, ladies. So that's it. Enjoy the rest of the day. Make any comment, Miss McFarlane? No comment?
No, I was just saying that they could pay attention to primary and secondary resources, what they are and when you use them. And normally they're also tested on this in the multiple choice.
Yes, that is so true. Yes, what is the primary resource? What is secondary resource? Examples of them, because the multiple choice is laden with them. All right, ladies. So enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the week.
Thank you, sir. Same to you.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Same to you, sir.